Welcome in, everybody, to another 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10 sit-down edition. I do a lot of the sit-downs. I like them. I enjoy talking to other people. I am a satellite employee and have been so for over a decade now. So this is kind of fun to be able to have people come on, especially smart folks, smarter than myself, which is why we bring them on the show to help, broaden everyone's horizons, including my own. Mike B, Reunion Marketing. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing great. How are you, Sean?
I'm wonderful, buddy. I'm wonderful. Thanks a lot for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate being invited. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, when the concept came up, so this notebook, people might see, might not see. It's always in front of me, every interview, every sit down I do. And a matter of fact, I only have 2 pages left. So this is like a 10-year-old notebook with all kinds of old notes when we started the company and just real archivish shit going on here, right? Mm-hmm. So in my notes initially, when I wrote up my concept for the show, I put your name in the corner and I circled it and put an asterisk next to it. Because I know that you understand what we're about to talk about quite well. You're the leader in the clubhouse, at least at your own firm, I think probably within the industry as well. And that's why I want to do this. So today is a new segment alert. Here's what we're doing. What is GA4 and why do I care? Okay, that is what we're after today. That is the big part of it. Everyone's been talking about GA4s. We're not going to talk a lot about other things, but there are all kinds of people in the mix and councils being put together and dealers not being sure what the hell is up. So Matt, Mike, I was just talking to your buddy, Matt. You two get me, see, I got to make sure I write and circle that. Mike, when you think about GA4 and the very basics, what should dealers know is a glaring difference between the Google Analytics that they're aware of today and GA4, which will become their life, we believe, in July if things go the way they're supposed to?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think, Sean, one of the major things I think is important for dealers to be aware in the transition away from Google Analytics Universal into Google Analytics 4. I think at the end of the day, we all know what dealers care about, and that's conversion. They care about conversion. They care about identifying traffic trends. They care about understanding what individuals are going to which pages. They care about having their agencies make adjustments for them. And I would say within the GA platform, that's changing pretty drastically, right? Historically, you've got years and years of data sitting in Universal Analytics, decades. That data is now being deprecated. What does that mean? That means it's not going to show up in GA4 in the same exact way. And so setting up GA4 in the best way possible to be able to support the identification of those traffic trends, to be able to support the understanding of what conversions are producing the best results for me, and being able to monitor all of that information consistently is probably the thing that dealers probably care about the most, right? Is how am I doing? How do I see how I'm doing? And how do I make it as simple as possible to interact with it?
So on the conversion side, because it is what we care about, right? From the dealer perspective, it's a lead-driven business. It always has been, it always will be. We try to take it down a notch here at CarBiz. We call ourselves activities trackers. So we like to track activity levels in certain places, see what they do, see how they operate. Anyone who knows me knows I don't like the attribution word. I think it's sort of a,
yeah.
I sold cars, right? So I grew up in selling cars. There was something called a half deal, Mike. Mm-hmm. That was about as far as it went. You and another guy split it. Google tells us people touch 20 points before they buy a car. Mm-hmm. I was barely into the idea of a half deal, let alone a 20th deal. So I get it. I understand why people want to reach for that. But I think there's a misconception that all of a sudden GA4 is just going to undress all that and it's going to have it built in and your attribution is going to be here. Folks, you're still, and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is still built for an e-commerce platform website commission idea. It's not like we've always bent Google Analytics to our will as car dealers. It wasn't meant for us. So don't mistake GA4 as being like something meant for us or something that was supposed to give you some deeper inclination of what you were going to know, at least to the attribution side. Is that fair, Mike?
Yeah, sure. That's very fair. I think what a lot of individuals need to realize is that while GA4 has definitely taken into consideration years of automotive data, they've definitely, it's still an out-of-the-box solution that needs to be customized to support your dealership and their particular focus areas. So don't consider just by setting it up that you're one and done, right? You need to actually go a little bit deeper. You get those events in there, you get that information that's trackable, and then really you have to kind of dig a little deeper, right, into some of those attribution aspects, right? And they're, as we've seen historically, are never perfect and they require a little bit of fine-tuning.
They are. And you've already mentioned the word events, right? Which events have been a part of GA in a sense, the triggering of different things, and that leads to goals, right? But now it's really a part of the funnel. Now, the reason that there are committees and councils and people trying to standardize isn't so much for the goal side, which you and I have talked about how weird I think that is, but we're trying to do the front half now, because the front half of the event is important, right? But it's important. When I say this, I know people get offended, and I it's not what I mean to be, but Mike, that seems like a marketer's concern. What leads to the conversion?
Yes.
I'm a car dealer, right? So I kind of care about the sausage when it's done. That sounds like how the sausage is made. Am I being unjust to the marketing community when I say that's a you problem, not a dealer problem?
No, I don't think that you are. I think that it is very important that, as your agency, you're providing the dealer with the made sausage, I would say with the entire dinner pre-prepared with your mashed potatoes and green beans as well. If that's what you're into, of course, maybe that's just a me thing. But I would definitely agree with you, Sean, there that a lot of that information that's being passed within GA4 needs to be abstracted away or simplified and then transferred to the dealer and given insights into how to make it better.
And we've taken what I like to call a positive twist in GA4, okay? It's no longer about your website being negative, having a bounce rate associated with it, okay? Right? What we're gonna do now is we're gonna have fun, we're gonna be hip, we're gonna be all young and cool, and we're gonna call this shit engagement, all right? The engagement metric. But as you and I discussed previous, the engagement metric is driven by the event-based metrics that you as marketers are trying to normalize across the platform and get to that. When you look at engagement, by the way, folks, literally it is the inverse number of a bounce rate. I've looked at it a million times across a bunch of stores, all right? Within a stone's throw, that thing is a 30% bounce rate, means you've got a 70% engagement rate on your new site. So don't be scared. It's just a new word and they want to be more positive. But when we look at engagement, Mike, something we've been looking at for a long time. The call we were on with Matt and everybody else and talking about old school Dadium, okay? Yeah. Dadium metric was that of engagement. I have reports that the archivist can bring out and show you that that's what we were tracking for clients. We were documenting that shit. This was 2014, 15, right? So it's not new, but it's different. Why should we care about engagement rate, Mike?
I think, Sean, when you talk about something such as engagement rate and why a dealer should care I think it once again goes back to simplicity, right? Is that there's information that's underlying the eventual transactional or conversion-based nature of your website, right?
Yeah.
And I think, once again, going back to the question that you had asked previously, is for a lot of the dealers, right, there are underlying pieces of information about engagement, such as scroll rate, such as interaction with images, right? The correlation necessarily between that action and a direct conversion, right, is still something that's being understood, right? Still trying to get there. And so in a lot of ways, I think why engagement does matter is that it gives us an understanding, for me, such as an agency who looks at things on an aggregate basis, it gives me deeper understandings of how individuals act on Dealer On versus Dealer.com, how they act on CDK Synchro versus Dealery Process. And that information allows me to make recommendations for you, right? So going back to, once again, the real point of all of this is engagement really gives your vendor the ability to understand how people are interacting with different aspects of your website that can and do lead to conversion, and then be able to make adjustments for you or recommendations that support you.
See, and I think it's interesting you bring up things like scroll rate and picture engagement, right? Because at the end of the day, it can speak to, so we have good relationships with my boy Jay Smithwick over at 360 Booth, and he's always said, look, it makes a difference. So I actually have a weird opportunity with one of my clients that came up. One of the clients inside of a 15-store group decided to launch a new 360 booth, but no one else in the group did. And all of a sudden, all these guys are on the same packages, third party, everything else. He just starts seeing a natural rise to his SRP VDP engagement metric. And everyone's like, well, where's this from? It doesn't make any sense. His inventory is no different, blah, blah, blah. That's the difference, right? And it's the same thing. Dealers say, well, why am I getting no new car engagement? Well, you have stock photos. Who gives a shit? I don't search for normal stuff, right? Like cars, that's not how I do it. But like I search for houses. And if I go to a house that has one picture, we're not, I mean, we don't even trust it, let alone go figure out where the rest of the pictures are, right?
Exactly.
So I get where that helps, but what's nice now, dealers, is that data can be stored within this, this other part of the metric, this idea of the engagement rate that's fueled by the events, that scrolling, that picture, all that can be pushed to events.
Yep.
Because for years they were trying to cram it into goals, which meant conversion, Mike. So when people would come to us and say, well, you don't have enough goals on your website, you don't have scrolling, and be like, what? No. You're confusing all of this shit with the actual outcome. So that part I like, but like I said, no dealer's going to care that they had 116,000 events on their website.
No, I mean, at the end of the day, what we can show them is why perhaps in our dealer network of dealer-on websites, why one is perhaps performing better, who's utilizing non-stock images versus stock images, right? And so that's where you talk about, as a dealer, you really have to be asking your vendor whether they're doing cross comparison across their dealer network, right? And for us, for our multiple hundreds of dealers and things like that, we're looking at data like that literally every week. And so, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And again, it's going to help you in the aggregate sense, the big query part of it that exists within the system and gives you as marketers another step up and another way to understand how things are working. I'm all in favor of that. Help clarify this. It's come up a few times. AdWords. Is that going to be any different? Does it connect the same? Is it the same world as you guys go, or is there a new version of that that's coming along with GA4?
That's a good question. For us right now, from my understanding, is that there is a great amount of interconnection between Google Ads and GA4, as the expectation would be. As far as what's going on with Google Ads, there are some different smart conversion aspects that are being built out, something that we're currently in testing and going to understand a little bit better on how to support dealers in the future. But like all things, I think that there's a gradual process to this, and there's still some known unknowns, as you might say. But as far as GA4 and Google Ads, they will be deeply integrated, and they will be able to support your understanding of how your Google Ads are performing on the website after they're clicked.
And I think that goes for a lot of exterior marketing as well, right? We've talked about organic social now being something I've been screaming about for a long time is, you can't just put social as a channel. You have to get into it. So you showed me the list the other day, but the list is a little bit bigger now as far as the channel analysis goes, right? We're not just direct, organic, paid, social. We have some more depth here. Talk to me about why that's important for you and then how that may affect the dealer.
Yeah, definitely. So I think historically, there's always been a really big challenge, especially related to paid advertising, where in a lot of times there would be you might see 6, 7 different sources come under one specific medium, such as CPC. Whereas now, what you're able to do is you're able to distribute those across different channels utilizing UTMs. And so you have things like organic social, right? You have organic paid, right? You have organic paid. You've got different email channels even, and things like that. And what's specific about that is segmentation is critical in what we do, right? It helps us identify what perhaps specific channel is supporting growth, but in different ways, right? And be able to apply different value ranges to that. You don't need to be spending $20,000 on email if it's not specifically getting you to where you want to be. You also don't want to be spending $40,000 on paid search if that's not critically important to your underlying conversions. We have not seen that historically, but it's really about the segmentation that allows you to understand specifically where your ad dollars are going and then how to optimize that on your website.
So UTMs, Mike, you think that's going to be a greater push to that with GA4 in your opinion? Is that how we're going to make things, deeper and better, because there isn't necessarily the GTM that exists today for you guys to work within? It's all encapsulated in GA4. Do I have that right in my basic mind, or how is that set up?
Yeah, so definitely. There are specific UTM codes that are set up for these new default channels that allow you to add those UTMs to the end of your current domain or URL. I think it is something that will definitely become more apparent and obvious as people begin to dive deeper into GA4 and become more important.
Okay, because I know UTM is a big thing. When people use them, it helps everybody involved, right? It gets it done. It seems to me to be something that should be simple. But I oversimplify things a lot. So I guess maybe it's not, but it seems like outgoing media, it should be pretty easy. We're also going to see a bigger push to the video aspect, right? And I think people are like, oh my gosh, why? they own YouTube. Like, I don't know if people like wake up in the morning and they somehow think Google is like the separate entity. Like, if Google says they're, oh, well, we're going to show you what happens with video, there's a reason they want to show you what happens with video. But I got to tell you, early on, it's been kind of nice to see that traffic and know from some of the YouTube action campaigns. We have some joint clients running. That thing's been kind of nice, man.
Oh yeah, we found it to be critically important to understanding how video interacts with a website, right? When you have an individual who's searching on, an intent-based keyword versus where they get a 20 to 30-second video, right? There's a dynamic aspect of video that supports an understanding of maybe the brand, maybe the type of model that they're looking for, or even offer. And so you can tell that individuals to a certain degree who experience that type of information even have potentially different search behaviors. That obviously has not been 100% proven, but we have seen extremely interesting behaviors that have come from video.
I mean, I think it makes sense, right? That if you get an interaction from a video, it sparked.
Yeah.
Something happened in the user, and it speaks to urgency, in my opinion. Like, I think it's something that's like, I don't normally do that, but if I do catch something, right, and I'm like, man, that was pretty slick. What was that?
Yeah.
You definitely will engage it from that perspective. So I think it's, again, a critical aspect. Obviously, we touched on a little bit, but the organic social, I think, is another really, really big part. But Mike, I think, without being too unfair to the discussion, you and your team had realized that because of the UTM tagging, that potentially that traffic was being a little muddled, and you had to go fix that. So is that something you can give as a general recommendation to folks, or sort of a way to keep a heads up as to, hey, because GA4, and guys, GA4 is still so new. Even after it launches, it's still so new. Okay. So there's going to be bugs. Your data is going to look weird. Things are going to come, things are going to go. But in that part of it, what do you say, Mike?
Yeah, so as far as UTM tagging is concerned, I would highly recommend that individual dealers who are involved with GA4 communicate to their agency, their different vendors, that they want their traffic to be segmented across the channels, the default channels that are available, and to make sure that that segmentation does exist and supports the specific channel that they're trying to isolate, right? So your organic social, it can be split from your paid social. You should absolutely have UTM codes that are set up to support those two differences. That way you can isolate the traffic that comes from each, right? Be able to really see and drill into the details of maybe how a particular organic post is maybe better, or something that should be cross-utilized within paid as well, which is something that we've seen as well. So definitely.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, self-serving. We're in the organic social business over here these days, as far as helping folks and being better. But I'm interested to see how the data impacts, because it is muddled in GA4. Yeah, you can get a YouTube reel, you can get a story, but now people can have, or the IG ads can be that. So even when it comes back through as a reel, it could just be an ad reel. So it doesn't really, you got to make sure of the pendulum. But way I look at it, you kind of touched on it. Right now, GA, right? We've got 1 billion views, right? Every vendor who's ever touched your website has a view.
Yeah.
It's weird to remove them. No one really ever feels like it's their responsibility. I don't know. It's like one of this weird fucking junk drawer thing going on with people and their digital hoarding. But as it happens, what does that look like now to a dealer? And what's going to happen, or what do we know about the effects of the multiple GA4s? And we know that's going to happen, and we see it already happening. So how do we approach this, Mike? What do we do to help the dealer own as best they can the property that is set up the most correctly?
Yeah, so I think this is something, you brought this question up the other day to me, and it kind of ignited a little bit more of a fire on being able to provide an answer that is in the best interest of the dealer. I think at the end of the day, as a dealer, if you have a GA4 that is set up and you have multiple, you need to go ahead and decide now which one is your main one. You need to make yourself the administrator on that particular GA4, and you need to make it aware that the measurement ID that's associated with that GA4 is the one that you're sticking with, and that's the one that all events from different vendors, from different CMSs, from eventually, which I'm sure we'll get into, the council, on the motive council, all the things go from there. They should all be interconnected into that one GA4, because like you said, historically we've seen this happen. You'll go into some clients' properties and GA, and you'll see 20 different views, and you're like, well, which one's the most important for historical context? And I think with GA4, what's nice about it is that there is only one GA4, and you can actually control that even more by the reduction of views, right? people can go ahead and they can create as much as they want, but as a dealer, you need to decide which measurement ID is the most important and the one that you will historically stick with. And you need to make sure that the dealership group or individual dealership is sticking with that, and all of your different vendors know.
The measurement ID. There is a new one. We got that thing circled, highlighted. That sounds
Yeah.
like console talk to me. But I like that you're saying it. I like that you brought it here today. I think it's very, very important. When you say get administration, so like you're an agency, right?
Yeah.
You set it up for me.
Mhm.
You make me an administrator?
Yes, absolutely.
I fire you, I remove you,
Yep.
and we keep running downhill. Now, but here I want to just caution folks to a little bit of this now. If you reunion set it up, GA4 events, goals, blah blah blah, are we still having? This is a trick question. What do you do? I'm not even going to trick you. What do you do when the goals break, disconnect? If I don't work with you anymore, then do I give someone else admin rights? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what dealers need to know, because they do change vendors. Like I'd like to sit here and tell you it didn't happen, but it does. So what does a dealer do? So
I think high level, right? This is the problem that I believe that the Automotive Standards Council, which I'm not quite sure if everyone's been made aware of, but if you aren't, the Automotive Standards Council's goal is to identify a series of events in which are the most important for both the vendor, the agency, the dealer, everyone involved, and to make sure that the CMS and the specific vendors, the digital retailing tools, the chat tools, they're all working together on providing a streamlined way to deliver events no matter what, right? So that's what the Standards Council is really focused on right now. And their goal is to basically have all of those particular CMSs as well as vendors to have their implementations done by the end of Q1 into Q2, which means that you will start to see events within your GA4 that have a ASC underscore as the start, and then they will have different event actions associated with that particular console. I would say in its current state, right, it's a little bit Wild West still, right? If you cancel me, you technically lose that connection, right, of events and things like that. With the council, if that is implemented correctly, which it appears as if they're doing their best to make that happen, that will be a thing of the past. Is that you could expect you change from one chat tool to another, boom, that's taken into consideration, and those events are transferred in, and they're firing into your GA4, and it's basically you are just unknown to it, and it's happening behind the scenes, which is naturally the hope, because it would limit the amount of touch time it would take to actually make additions or make changes. So high level, in short, current state is it is a little bit of the wild, wild west. And I believe that the Automotive Standards Council is trying to do their best to adjust that and make sure that there's a streamlined way in which event data is delivered in that can be turned into conversions and support your understanding of how your website is performing with both a vendor as well as an agency and a CMS as well.
All right. So here's the thing. When you have this happen, because if this is what's truly taking place, if this is what the council is doing, there's value, because right now dealers have a chat tool, they have to change, it has to be reconnected, that guy doesn't push out, this guy doesn't push in, these people don't do that. I've heard some of the names on the council, which is funny that they're on the council, because some of those people are the biggest obstructionists in the fucking world to begin with. So I don't actually trust that any of them are going to do what they say they're going to do, but we'll regress and we'll say that everyone's on this council really looking to work together. How is it that a dealer is going to know and be able to validate, trust the data if one does make the change, because of how miserable these changes have been? What education does the council have planned to bring to the dealer body? The people writing the checks, keeping everyone's councils alive. What will they see? How will they know what to do and what to trust?
So from my understanding, the Automotive Standards Council is focused on developing educational videos and awareness, through both articles as well as visual, a way of understanding what things that the dealer can check for very simply, or a checklist and expectation of their vendor or agency as to what should be expected of them and what questions they should be asking. That is really the initial step right there. I do think, like all things, it's important that individuals obviously take that step on their own and look up some of the GA4 best practices that are just really on YouTube, given by Google as well. But as far as what the Standards Council is doing is that they're trying to do their best to provide visuals in both a written form as well as a video form to inform the dealer as to how they check for what is happening and whether that is correct.
Okay. All right. Well, look at you. You know what I mean? Like you guys, did anyone know he's a politician? Do you guys know that? Listen to these answers. I love how you do it. It's why I wanted to have you on. It's because you have a way of making it where it's like, look, here's what we're really trying to accomplish. You're clearly far more trusting than I am, and I love you for that as well. I'm just not by nature. I've been doing this way too long, but what I'm glad to hear is that we're trying to do it. I think that getting the more dealers involved, more people talking about it, and maybe not just vendors talking about it and talking about the impact. I'm a bit concerned how, every vendor will get in line, everything will be there, right? So I think it's important dealers realize that there may be a situation where it's there. It may be part of your website. I've seen this already happen with Dealer eProcess and some of the things to that nature, right? So you're seeing those views. The problem is, right? The Dealer EP GA4 view, which is where that information is held on the council information, isn't the one you and I set up a year ago.
Yeah.
When we were already, talking about this, worrying about this before anyone else is really worried about it or talking about it. So there's issues with that because then now, like you said, now I've got to decide that this new view that just came into my life with these goals and council numbers in it gets rid of historical information that was housed in a previous version of it, because it's not like it's retroactive, right, Mike?
Yeah.
It's not like when that view turns on from a different, like not a view, but the new GA4 with the council numbers doesn't automatically go back to when it registers a GA4 account live. It's the day that thread gets on there, I assume, correct?
Yes, it is. And I think this goes back, to a lot of times choosing a technically sound agency to support you is very critical. When you are reporting on something, you came back and you asked a question about, how am I going to know as a dealer? I think something as a dealer, a great question to ask is, how are you looking at my dealership or dealership group's data every single week? Right? Like, are you able to do that? How do you know when things break? How do you know when things fall off? As a dealer, principal or someone in charge, I think it's really critical that you're asking that question, because if your agency is not technically sound and they cannot answer that question, something will break, something will fall off, and it will not work correctly. And so, in short, I think, you're 100% right in asking these questions, but I think it really comes down to, is the dealer principal, do they know the right questions? Are they ensuring that the deliverables of the contract are being met, right? If it says in the contract that we're monitoring your Google Analytics, like it says in ours, is prove it to me that you're actually doing that. Like, how are you doing that in aggregate, right? When we look at data, we have it across every single dealership here, and we look at it pretty much daily in some way, shape, or form for some of our customers, just to give them insights and be able to understand ourselves whether things are falling off. But yeah, it's definitely.
I think GA4 will have a deeper and different story to tell. I really do. I think it's something that we will be learning more about. Mike, you've been really gracious with your time today, man. I really appreciate it. We're going to try and do this again in the future. We're going to keep going with this kind of leading up to the July Launchpad situation. We'll see what else comes of it. Maybe we'll bring in a dealer. Maybe we'll bring in somebody else who's, I don't know. I have no idea. I know that we need to get the word out. We need to help educate people. Again, I'm glad that people are working on the vendor side of things. But we collectively need to do a better job educating the dealer side of things as to why, what, and where is about to take place. And dealers, if you already do not have a GA4 account running on your website today as you view this, call me. My cell phone's all over the website. It's everywhere you can imagine. It is really my cell phone. I will really be the one who picks it up. And I will help you get connected with folks who will set this up for you free of charge. There will be no issues whatsoever. We will get this together. So please, 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 if you don't have it, don't be ashamed. It's okay. Well, we need to get it. We need to get it fast, okay? And if you don't already own your historical data out of the original, go start building spreadsheets, baby, or hire us. We can do it for you. But that's the heavy lifting you need to do leading up to July. Mike, what would you leave the dealers with from where you sit as a marketer, my friend?
Yeah, I just want the dealer to know, that there's a lot of individuals out there that are willing to help and respect their needs. You just got to ask their questions and we'll be there for you. I think that the greatest thing to know is, yeah, there's a lot of change here, but it's totally manageable and we can definitely help support you in any way. And I know, Sean, you've done a great job over the years at directing individuals in the right direction. And I know that you'll continue to do that as well. And, just we'll support one another, try to figure out this whole GA4 journey.
I love it. Ask the right questions. That's something that we're gonna next time we meet, start having a list of those.
Okay.
Start thinking of a list of the hot buttons where we can start saying, hey, these are the 3 questions, bar none, you need to ask today of a new vendor as it relates to GA4. I think it's going to be crucial. Mikey B, thanks a lot for your time today, man. I truly appreciate it. Everybody else, thank you for joining us. And next week on the show, we're going to start your month off with yet another Mikey, and we're going to be talking all about mental health. I can't wait for that show. Hope you join us. Thank you guys so much. Have a great week.